Good evening, Jack Carter here. Tonight, we need to talk straight about something that keeps parents awake. The 2026 National Inquiry into Grooming Gangs. This isn't tabloid noise. This is about children, institutions, and whether we're finally getting the answers we were promised. Listen, I know how this lands. There's anger, grief, and a kind of weary suspicion that nothing will change. I hear you, I feel it. And we'll walk through what's actually happening now, what's improved, and why you still need to be watchful. Okay? Grab yourself a brew and let's get into it. First, the current landscape. The 2025 Casey audit laid bare systemic weaknesses in how agencies responded to group-based child sexual exploitation. That audit prompted a statutory national inquiry in 2026, a heavier, more powerful investigation with teeth. The aim to examine institutional failings across police forces, local authorities, health services, and schools. Why a statutory inquiry? Because previous reviews were patchy, voluntary, limited, slow. This one has legal powers to compel evidence, to cross-examine witnesses, and to make binding recommendations. That matters. It really does. By the way, I want to be clear. An inquiry doesn't mean instant justice. It's about uncovering the truth, fixing systems, and preventing future harm. But survivors and families rightly want speed as well as truth. That tension is real. Now, let's go deeper into the inquiry itself. Baroness Anne Longfield is leading the independent inquiry into group-based child sexual exploitation. It's set for 3 years. 3 years is long, but it also reflects the complexity. Multiple agencies, decades of cases, and a need to follow institutional paper trails. The inquiry's central focus is institutional failings. Where did the police, councils, social services, and schools drop the ball? Where were risk signals missed? Where was prejudice or bureaucracy allowed to eclipse protecting children? Those are the core questions. One concrete change already implemented: mandatory recording of ethnicity data in cases of group-based child sexual exploitation. Now, people will argue about why that matters, and yes, it's politically sensitive, but the rationale is simple. Without accurate data, you can't meaningfully analyze patterns, allocate resources, or evaluate whether investigation practices were biased or inconsistent. Data, ugly, awkward data, is essential to reform. Quick note: recording ethnicity must be handled carefully. It mustn't be used to stigmatize communities. Instead, it's meant to reveal where institutional failures might correlate with demographic factors so we can fix them. We must have both honesty and caution. Let's talk about reality on the ground. Convictions are continuing. Courts are still delivering guilty verdicts in some cases. But the landscape of risk has shifted. It's not just men on street corners anymore. A large portion of grooming now happens online. Social media, messaging apps, closed groups, encrypted platforms. That's the new hunting ground. Which means parents must change how they think about safety. It's not only about locking the front door. It's about understanding the apps your children use, the strangers who can slide into direct messages, and the private groups where exploitation can be normalized. I'm not seeing panic. I'm seeing awareness. Talk to your kids. Know their friends. Check privacy settings. Ask them, who are you talking to online, in an open way, not an accusing way. You'd be surprised how many young people say they would tell a teacher, but then don't because they feel ashamed. So we need to make it safe to speak up. Parents tell me they feel alone. They hear about big inquiries and reforms, and yet the streets, the schools, still look risky. That's a fair feeling. In many communities, there's a palpable frustration. People want quicker prosecutions, faster support for survivors, and accountability that isn't hidden behind red tape. And survivors are angry, rightly so. They want justice now. Waiting years for inquiries, waiting for police to prioritize cases, saps trust. We must acknowledge that. The inquiry must not be an excuse for delay. It should be a mechanism to speed up systemic. Progress has been made in some areas. Some police forces have set up specialist units. Some councils have improved child protection protocols, and training programs for frontline workers have increased in many places. But progress is patchy. It's uneven across the country. That's the problem. A postcode lottery for protection. We also face the scale of historic cases. There are years, sometimes decades, of allegations, records scattered, people moved around. Reconstructing those files, interviewing witnesses have moved, accurately assessing old decisions. It takes time. But again, time can't be an excuse to forget victims. We must do both, speed and rigor. Look, I want to address a common worry. Will focusing on ethnicity data fuel division? No, not if it's used properly. We are recording data to ensure institutions weren't biased in their responses, not to point a finger at entire communities. We must be vigilant against scapegoating. Responsibility lies with individuals and systems, not whole communities. So, what needs to happen next? First, the inquiry must publish interim findings and recommendations quickly, not hoard everything for year 3. If there are clear, actionable fixes, do them now. Second, improve data sharing between agencies. Too often a child falls through the cracks because records aren't joined up. We need secure, lawful, immediate communication between police, health services, schools and social care. No more bureaucratic ping-pong. Third, invest in digital safety resources for families and schools. That's not just IT filters. It's training teachers, helplines that actually pick up the phone, and clear reporting routes when grooming is suspected. Also, support for survivors, counseling, legal help, long-term care. Don't treat recovery as optional. Fourth, community policing must adapt. Police need to be proactive online as well as in neighborhoods. That requires skills, funding, and legal frameworks to investigate encrypted platforms responsibly and effectively. Fifth, demand transparency. If your council, your police force, or your local MP claims they're acting, ask what that means concretely. Ask for crime maps, for data, for timelines. Don't accept bland reassurances. Hold them to account. I know that's uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Now, practical steps for parents and guardians. What you can do today. 1. Have the conversation. Open, non-judgmental, repeated. 2. Set family tech rules that make sense for you, not just blanket bans that kids will secretly bypass. 3. Teach critical thinking about online friendships and grooming tactics. 4. Know how to report both to platforms and to local authorities. 5. Support survivors in your community. Believe, signpost, stand alongside. And a note to community leaders. Wraparound support matters. When a child is rescued or comes forward, what happens next? If there's nowhere safe to go or no consistent support, the harm compounds. Fund services that keep children safe in the long term. I also want to be clear about political accountability. This inquiry is statutory. Ministers and senior officials will be scrutinised. That's right, but the public has to keep pushing. Elections, letters to MPs, local meetings, democracy must be active on this issue. Don't let it become a bureaucratic dry cleaning exercise. Some people will say, "We didn't know how bad it was." And sometimes that's true. But other times it's willful blindness or a refusal to tackle uncomfortable facts. The inquiry must name those differences without pandering to headline-grabbing victim-blaming. That's a fine line. We need courage. I want to read you a quick, anonymized sketch of what families tell me. A mum who noticed strange messages on her 14-year-old daughter's phone, who went to school and felt brushed off. A dad who saw his son withdraw, then found evidence of contact with older men online. Survivors whose reports were recorded as youth misbehavior rather than safeguarding. These aren't stories for shock value. They're the everyday heartbreak this inquiry exists to stop. So, what can listeners expect from the inquiry timeline? Hearings will be staged, evidence will be taken, and certain institutional leaders will be called to give account. But remember, while the inquiry works, cases will still move through the criminal justice system. Keep pressure on prosecutors and police to prioritize ongoing investigations in parallel. To sum up, and this is important, the inquiry is necessary. The legal powers, the focus on institutions, the mandatory data recording, these are steps forward. But they are not a fix on their own. Implementation matters. Speed matters. Survivors' needs matter now, not in 3 years' time. So, what I ask of you as a neighbour, a parent, a voter, stay informed, stay demanding, talk to your children, check devices, volunteer or donate to local support services if you can, and call out complacency, politely, persistently, publicly. We will keep following this inquiry closely on this programme. We'll bring experts, survivors and officials on air. We'll press them hard. Not because it's sensational, but because it matters. Final thought. This is one of those moments where a community decides whether it protects its most vulnerable. It's not abstract, it's practical, messy, and sometimes painful. But it's also an opportunity to do better, to stop the next child from being harmed, to finally get the institutions in proper order. Thank you for listening. If you're in immediate danger or need to report something, contact your local police or Childline. And if you've been affected and want to share your experience with us or get resources, email the show. We'll put you in touch with trusted organisations. Right, that's it from me tonight. Stay safe, watch out for one another, and keep the pressure up. Good night.